Costa's audiobook presents The Brothers Karamazov by Fyodor Dostoyevsky. Part 3. Book 9. The Preliminary Investigation. Chapter 5. The Third Ordeal. Though Mitya spoke sullenly, it was evident that he was trying more than ever not to forget or miss a single detail of his story. He told them how he had leapt over the fence into his father's garden, how he had gone up to the window, told them all that had passed under the window. Clearly, precisely, distinctly, it described the feelings that troubled him during those moments in the garden when he longed so terribly to know whether Grushenka was with his father or not. But, strange to say, both the lawyers listened now with a sort of awful reserve, looked coldly at him, asked few questions. Mitya could gather nothing from their faces. They're angry and offended, he thought. Well, bother them. When he described how he made up his mind at last to make the signal to his father that Grushenka had come, so that he should open the window, the lawyers paid no attention to the word signal, as though they entirely failed to grasp the meaning of the word in this connection, so much so that Mitya noticed it. Coming at last to the moment when, seeing his father peering out of the window, his hatred flared up and pulled the pestle out of his pocket, he suddenly, as though of design, stopped short. He sat gazing at the wall and was aware that their eyes were fixed upon him. "Well," said the investigating lawyer, "you pulled out the weapon, and what happened then?" "Then? Why, then I murdered him, hit him on the head and cracked his skull. I suppose that's your story. That's it." His eyes suddenly flashed. All his smothered wrath suddenly flamed up with extraordinary violence in his soul. "Our story," repeated Nikolai Parfenovitch. "Well, and yours?" Mitya dropped his eyes and was long silent. "My story, gentlemen. Well, it was like this," he began softly. "Whether it was someone's tears, or my mother prayed to God, or a good angel kissed me at that instant, I don't know. But the devil was conquered. I rushed from the window and ran to the fence. My father was alarmed, and for the first time he saw me then, cried out, and sprang back from the window. I remember that very well. I ran across the garden to the fence, and there Grigory caught me, when I was sitting on the fence. At that point he raised his eyes at last and looked at his listeners. They seemed to be staring at him with perfectly unruffled attention. A sort of paroxysm of indignation seized on Mitya's soul. "Why, you're laughing at me at this moment, gentlemen," he broke off suddenly. "What makes you think that?" observed Nikolai Parfenovitch. "You don't believe one word, that's why. I understand, of course, that I have come to the vital point. The old man's lying there now with his skull broken, while I, after dramatically describing how I wanted to kill him and how I snatched up the pestle, I suddenly ran away from the window. A romance, poetry, as though one could believe a fellow on his word. Ha ha, you are scoffers, gentlemen." And he swung round on his chair so that it creaked. "And did you notice," asked the prosecutor suddenly, as though not observing Mitya's excitement, "did you notice when you ran away from the window whether the door into the garden was open?" "No, it was not open." "It was not?" "It was shut. And who could open it?" "Bah, the door. Wait a bit." He seemed suddenly to bethink himself, and almost with a start. "Why, did you find the door open?" "Yes, it was open." "Why, who could have opened it if you did not open it yourselves?" cried Mitya, greatly astonished. "The door stood open, and your father's murderer undoubtedly went in at that door, and, having accomplished the crime, went out again by the same door," the prosecutor pronounced deliberately, as though chiseling out each word separately. "That is perfectly clear. The murder was committed in the room and not through the window. That is absolutely certain from the examination that has been made, from the position of the body and everything. There can be no doubt of that circumstance." Mitya was absolutely dumbfounded. "But that's utterly impossible," he cried, completely at a loss. I didn't go in. I tell you positively, definitely, the door was shut the whole time I was in the garden, and when I ran out of the garden, I only stood at the window and saw him through the window. That's all. That's all. I remember at the last minute, and if I didn't remember, it would be just the same. I know it, for no one knew the signals except Smirnakov and me and the dead man, and he wouldn't have opened the door to anyone in the world without the signals." "Signals? What signals?" asked the prosecutor with greedy, almost hysterical curiosity. he instantly lost all trace of his reserve and dignity. He asked the question with a sort of cringing timidity. He scented an important fact of which he had known nothing, and was already filled with dread that Mitya might be unwilling to disclose it. "So you didn't know?" Mitya winked at him with a malicious and mocking smile. "What if I won't tell you? From whom could you find out? No one knew about the signals except my father, Smirnakov, and me. That was all. Heaven knew, too, but it won't tell you. But it's an interesting fact. There's no knowing what you might build on it. Ha ha. Take comfort, gentlemen. I'll reveal it. You've some foolish idea in your hearts. You don't know the man you have to deal with. You have to do with a prisoner who gives evidence against himself to his own damage. Yes, for I'm a man of honor, and you are not." The prosecutor swallowed this without a murmur. He was trembling with impatience to hear the new fact. Minutely and diffusely, Mitya told them everything about the signals invented by Fyodor Pavlovich for Smirnakov. He told them exactly what every tap on the window meant, tapped the signals on the table, and when Nikolai Parfenovitch said that he supposed he, Mitya, had tapped the signal "Grushenka has come," when he tapped to his father, he answered precisely that he had tapped that signal, that Grushenka had come. "So now you can build up your tower," Mitya broke off, and again turned away from them contemptuously. "So no one knew of the signals but your dead father, you, and the valet Smirnakov, and no one else?" Nikolai Parfenovitch inquired once more. "Yes, the valet Smirnakov and heaven. Write down about heaven. That may be of use. Besides, you will need God yourselves." And they had already, of course, begun writing it down. But while they wrote, the prosecutor said suddenly, as though pitching on a new idea, "But if Smirnakov also knew of these signals, and you absolutely deny all responsibility for the death of your father, was it not he, perhaps, who knocked the signal agreed upon, induced your father to open to him, and then committed the crime?" Mitya turned upon him a look of profound irony and intense hatred. His silent stare lasted so long that it made the prosecutor blink. "You've caught the fox again," commented Mitya at last. "You've got the beast by the tail. I see through you, Mr. Prosecutor. You thought, of course, that I should jump at that, catch at your prompting, and shout with all my might, 'Aye, it's Smirnakov. He's the murderer.' Confess that's what you thought. Confess, and I'll go on." But the prosecutor did not confess. He held his tongue and waited. "You're mistaken. I'm not going to shout 'It's Smirnakov,'" said Mitya. "And you don't even suspect him." "Why? Do you suspect him?" "He is suspected too." Mitya fixed his eyes on the floor. "Joking apart," he brought up gloomily. "Listen, from the very beginning, almost from the moment when I ran out to you from behind the curtain, I've had the thought of Smirnakov in my mind. I've been sitting here, shouting that I'm innocent and thinking all the time, 'Smirnakov. I can't get Smirnakov out of my head.' In fact, I, too, thought of Smirnakov just now, but only for a second. Almost at once I thought, no, it's not Smirnakov. It's not his doing, gentlemen." "In that case, is there anybody else you suspect?" Nikolai Parfenovitch inquired cautiously. "I don't know anyone it could be, whether it's the hand of heaven or Satan, but not Smirnakov," Mitya jerked out with decision. "But what makes you affirm so confidently and emphatically that it's not he?" "From my conviction, my impression. Because Smirnakov is a man of the most abject character and a coward. He's not a coward. He is the epitome of all the cowardice in the world walking on two legs. He has the heart of a chicken. When he talked to me, he was always trembling for fear I should kill him, though I never raised my hand against him. He fell at my feet and blubbered. He has kissed these very boots, literally, beseeching me not to frighten him. Do you hear? Not to frighten him. What a thing to say. Why, I offered him money. He's a pulling chicken, sickly, epileptic, weak-minded. A child of 8 could thrash him. He has no character worth talking about. It's not Smirnakov, gentlemen. He doesn't care for money. He wouldn't take my presents. Besides, what motive had he for murdering the old man? Why, he's very likely his son, you know, his natural son. Do you know that? We have heard that legend. But you are your father's son, too, you know. Yet you yourself told everyone you meant to murder him. That's a thrust, and a nasty mean one, too. I'm not afraid. Oh, gentlemen, isn't it too base of you to say that to my face? It's base, because I told you that myself. I not only wanted to murder him, but I might have done it. And what's more, I went out of my way to tell you of my own accord that I nearly murdered him. But, you see, I didn't murder him. You see, my guardian angel saved me. That's what you've not taken into account, and that's why it's so base of you. For I didn't kill him. I didn't kill him. Do you hear? I did not kill him." He was almost choking. He had not been so moved before during the whole interrogation. "And what has he told you, gentlemen? Smernikov, I mean," he added suddenly, after a pause. "May I ask that question?" "You may ask any question," the prosecutor replied with frigid severity. "Any question relating to the facts of the case, and we are, I repeat, bound to answer every inquiry you make. We found the servant Smernikov, concerning whom you inquire, lying unconscious in his bed, in an epileptic fit of extreme severity, that had recurred possibly 10 times. The doctor who was with us told us, after seeing him, that he may possibly not outlive the night." "Well, if that's so, the devil must have killed him," broke suddenly from Mitya, as though until that moment he had been asking himself, was it Smernikov or not? "We will come back to this later," Nikolai Parfenovitch decided. "Now, would you like to continue your statement?" Mitya asked for a rest. His request was courteously granted. After resting, he went on with his story. But he was evidently depressed. He was exhausted, mortified, and morally shaken. To make things worse, the prosecutor exasperated him, as though intentionally, by vexatious interruptions about trifling points. Scarcely had Mitya described how, sitting on the wall, he had struck Grigory on the head with the pestle, while the old man had hold of his left leg, and how he had then jumped down to look at him, when the prosecutor stopped him to ask him to describe exactly how he was sitting on the wall. Mitya was surprised. "Oh, I was sitting like this, astride, one leg on one side of the wall and one on the other." "And the pestle?" "The pestle was in my hand." "Not in your pocket. Do you remember that precisely? Was it a violent blow you gave him?" "It must have been a violent one, but why do you ask? Would you mind sitting on a chair just as you sat on the wall then, and showing us just how you moved your arm, and in what direction?" "You're making fun of me, aren't you?" asked Mitya, looking haughtily at the speaker, but the latter did not flinch. Mitya turned abruptly, sat astride on his chair, and swung his arm. "This was how I struck him. That's how I knocked him down. What more do you want?" "Thank you. May I trouble you now to explain why you jumped down, with what object, and what you had in view?" "Oh, hang it, I jumped down to look at the man I'd hurt. I don't know what for." "Though you were so excited and were running away." "Yes, though I was excited and running away." "You wanted to help him." "Help? Yes, perhaps. I did want to help him. I don't remember." "You don't remember? Then you didn't quite know what you were doing." "Not at all. I remember everything, every detail. I jumped down to look at him, and wiped his face with my handkerchief." "We have seen your handkerchief. Did you hope to restore him to consciousness?" "I don't know whether I hoped it. I simply wanted to make sure whether he was alive or not." "Ah, you wanted to be sure. Well, what then?" "I'm not a doctor. I couldn't decide. I ran away thinking I'd killed him, and now he's recovered." "Excellent," commented the prosecutor. "Thank you. That's all I wanted. Kindly proceed." Alas, it never entered Mitya's head to tell them, though he remembered it, that he had jumped back from pity, and standing over the prostrate figure had even uttered some words of regret. "You've come to grief, old man. There's no help for it. Well, there you must lie." The prosecutor could only draw one conclusion, that the man had jumped back at such a moment and in such excitement simply with the object of asserting whether the only witness of his crime were dead, that he must therefore have been a man of great strength, coolness, decision, and foresight even at such a moment, and so on. The prosecutor was satisfied. "I've provoked the nervous fellow by trifles, and he has said more than he meant to." With painful effort, Mitya went on, but this time he was pulled up immediately by Nikolai Parfenovitch. "How came you to run to the servant, Fedosia Markovna, with your hands so covered with blood, and, as it appears, your face too?" "Why, I didn't notice the blood at all at the time," answered Mitya. "That's quite likely. It does happen sometimes." The prosecutor exchanged glances with Nikolai Parfenovitch. "I simply didn't notice. You're quite right there, prosecutor," Mitya assented suddenly. Next came the account of Mitya's sudden determination to step aside and make way for their happiness. But he could not make up his mind to open his heart to them as before, and tell them about the queen of his soul. He disliked speaking of her before these chilly persons who were fastening on him like bugs, and so in response to their reiterated questions he answered briefly and abruptly. "Well, I made up my mind to kill myself. What had I left to live for?" That question stared me in the face. Her first rightful lover had come back, the man who wronged her but who'd hurried back to offer his love, after 5 years, and atone for the wrong with marriage. So I knew it was all over for me. And behind me disgrace and that blood Grigory's. What had I to live for? So I went to redeem the pistols I had pledged, to load them and put a bullet in my brain tomorrow. And a grand feast the night before? Yes, a grand feast the night before. Damn it all, gentlemen, do make haste and finish it. I meant to shoot myself not far from here, beyond the village, and I planned to do it at 5 o'clock in the morning, and I had a note in my pocket already. I wrote it at Pechotin's when I loaded my pistols. Here's the letter. Read it. It's not for you, I tell it. He added contemptuously. He took it from his waistcoat pocket and flung it on the table. The lawyers read it with curiosity, and, as is usual, added it to the papers connected with the case. And you didn't even think of washing your hands at Pechotin's. You were not afraid then of arousing suspicion. What suspicion? Suspicion or not, I should have galloped here just the same, and shot myself at 5 o'clock, and you wouldn't have been in time to do anything. If it hadn't been for what's happened to my father, you would have known nothing about it, and wouldn't have come here. Oh, it's the devil's doing. It was the devil murdered father. It was through the devil that you found it out so soon. How did you manage to get here so quick? It's marvelous. A dream. Mr. Pechotin informed us that when you came to him, you held in your hands, your blood-stained hands, your money, a lot of money, a bundle of 100-ruble notes, and that his servant boy saw it too. That's true, gentlemen. I remember it was so. Now, there's one little point presents itself. Can you inform us, Nikolai Petronovich began, with extreme gentleness. Where did you get so much money all of a sudden, when it appears from the facts, from the reckoning of time, that you had not been home? The prosecutor's brows contracted at the question being asked so plainly, but he did not interrupt Nikolai Petronovich. No, I didn't go home, answered Mitya, apparently perfectly composed, but looking at the floor. Allow me then to repeat my question. Nikolai Petronovich went on as though creeping up to the subject. Where were you able to procure such a sum all at once, when by your own confession, at 5 o'clock the same day, you... I was in want of 10 roubles and pledged my pistols with Pechotin, and then went to Madame Holikov to borrow the 1,000 which she wouldn't give me, and so on, and all the rest of it. Mitya interrupted sharply. Yes, gentlemen, I was in want of it, and suddenly thousands turned up, eh? Do you know, gentlemen, you're both afraid now, what if he won't tell us where he got it? That's just how it is. I'm not going to tell you, gentlemen. You've guessed right. You'll never know, said Mitya, chipping out each word with extraordinary determination. The lawyers were silent for a moment. You must understand, Mr. Karamazov, that it is of vital importance for us to know, said Nikolai Petronovich, softly and suavely. I understand, but still I won't tell you. The prosecutor, too, intervened, and again reminded the prisoner that he was at liberty to refuse to answer questions, if he thought it to his interest, and so on. But in view of the damage he might do himself by his silence, especially in a case of such importance as... And so on, gentlemen, and so on. Enough. I've heard that rigmarole before. Mitya interrupted again. I can see for myself how important it is, and that this is the vital point, and still I won't say. What is it to us? It's not our business, but yours. You are doing yourself harm, observed Nikolai Petronovich nervously. You see, gentlemen, joking apart, Mitya lifted his eyes and looked firmly at them both. I had an inkling from the first that we should come to loggerheads at this point. But at first, when I began to give my evidence, it was all still far away and misty. It was all floating, and I was so simple that I began with the supposition of mutual confidence existing between us. Now I can see for myself that such confidence is out of the question, for in any case we were bound to come to this cursed stumbling block. And now we've come to it. It's impossible, and there's an end of it. But I don't blame you. You can't believe it all simply on my word. I understand it, of course. He relapsed into gloomy silence. Couldn't you, without abandoning your resolution to be silent about the chief point, could you not, at the same time, give us some slight hint as to the nature of the motives which are strong enough to induce you to refuse to answer, at a crisis so full of danger to you? Mitya smiled mournfully, almost dreamily. I'm much more good-natured than you think, gentlemen. I'll tell you the reason why and give you that hint, though you don't deserve it. I won't speak of that, gentlemen, because it would be a stain on my honor. The answer to the question where I got the money would expose me to far greater disgrace than the murder and robbing of my father, if I had murdered and robbed him. That's why I can't tell you. I can't for fear of disgrace. What, gentlemen? Are you going to write that down? Yes, we'll write it down, lisped Nikolai Petronovich. You ought not to write that down about disgrace. I only told you that in the goodness of my heart. I needn't have told you. I made you a present of it, so to speak, and you pounce upon it at once. Oh, well, write what you like, he concluded with scornful disgust. I'm not afraid of you, and I can still hold up my head before you. And can't you tell us the nature of that disgrace? Nikolai Parfenovitch hazarded. The prosecutor frowned darkly. No, c'est fini. Don't trouble yourselves. It's not worthwhile soiling one's hands. I have soiled myself enough through you as it is. You're not worth it. No one is. Enough, gentlemen. I'm not going on. This was said too peremptorily. Nikolai Parfenovitch did not insist further, but from Ippolit Kirillowitch's eyes, he saw that he had not given up hope. Can you not at least tell us what sum you had in your hands when you went into Mr. Pehotin's? How many roubles exactly? I can't tell you that. You spoke to Mr. Pehotin, I believe, of having received 3,000 from Madame Holikov. Perhaps I did. Enough, gentlemen. I won't say how much I had. Will you be so good then as to tell us how you came here and what you have done since you arrived? Oh, you might ask the people here about that, but I'll tell you if you like. He proceeded to do so, but we won't repeat his story. He told it dryly and curtly. Of the raptures of his love he said nothing, but told them that he abandoned his determination to shoot himself, owing to new factors in the case. He told the story without going into motives or details, and this time the lawyers did not worry him much. It was obvious that there was no essential point of interest to them here. We shall verify all that. We will come back to it during the examination of the witnesses, which will, of course, take place in your presence, said Nikolai Parfenovitch in conclusion. And now allow me to request you to lay on the table everything in your possession, especially all the money you still have about you. My money, gentlemen? Certainly. I understand that is necessary. I am surprised, indeed, that you haven't inquired about it before. It's true I couldn't get away anywhere. I'm sitting here where I can be seen. But here's my money. Count it. Take it. That's all I think. He turned it out all his pockets, even the small change, 2 pieces of 20 kopecks he pulled out of his waistcoat pocket. They counted the money, which amounted to 836 roubles and 40 kopecks. And is that all? Asked the investigating lawyer. Yes. You stated just now in your evidence that you spent 300 roubles at Plotnikov's. You gave Pehotin 10, your driver 20. Here you lost 200. Then Nikolai Parfenovitch reckoned it all up. Mitya helped him readily. They recollected every farthing and included it in the reckoning. Nikolai Parfenovitch hurriedly added up the total. With this 800, you must have had about 1,500 at first. I suppose so, snapped Mitya. How is it they all assert there was much more? Let them assert it. But you asserted it yourself. Yes, I did too. We will compare all this with the evidence of other persons not yet examined. Don't be anxious about your money. It will be properly taken care of and be at your disposal at the conclusion of what is beginning, if it appears or, so to speak, is proof that you have undisputed right to it. Well, and now. Nikolai Parfenovitch suddenly got up and informed Mitya firmly that it was his duty and obligation to conduct a minute and thorough search of your clothes and everything else. By all means, gentlemen, I'll turn out all my pockets if you like. And he did, in fact, begin turning out his pockets. It will be necessary to take off your clothes too. What? Undress? Ah, damn it. Won't you search me as I am, can't you? It's utterly impossible, Dmitri Fyodorovich. You must take off your clothes. As you like, Mitya submitted gloomily. Only, please, not here, but behind the curtains. Who will search them? Behind the curtains, of course. Nikolai Parfenovitch bent his head in assent. His small face wore an expression of peculiar solemnity. Chapter 6. The prosecutor catches Mitya. Something utterly unexpected and amazing to Mitya followed. He could never, even a minute before, have conceived that anyone could behave like that to him, Mitya Karamazov. What was worst of all, there was something humiliating in it, and on their side something supercilious and scornful. It was nothing to take off his coat, but he was asked to undress further, or rather not asked but commanded. He quite understood that. From pride and contempt, he submitted without a word. Several peasants accompanied the lawyers and remained on the same side of the curtain. To be ready if force is required, thought Mitya, and perhaps for some other reason too. Well, must I take off my shirt too? He asked sharply. But Nikolai Parfenovitch did not answer. He was busily engaged with the prosecutor in examining the coat, the trousers, the waistcoat, and the cap. and it was evident that they were both much interested in the scrutiny. They make no bones about it, thought Mitya. They don't keep up the most elementary politeness. I ask you for the second time, did I take off my shirt or not? He said, still more sharply and irritably. Don't trouble yourself. We will tell you what to do, Nikolai Pefonovitch said, and his voice was positively peremptory, or so it seemed to Mitya. Meantime, a consultation was going on in undertones between the lawyers. There turned out to be on the coat, especially on the left side at the back, a huge patch of blood, dry and still stiff. There were bloodstains on the trousers too. Nikolai Pefonovitch, moreover, in the presence of the peasant witnesses, passed his fingers along the collar, the cuffs, and all the seams of the coat and trousers, obviously looking for something. Money, of course. He didn't even hide from Mitya his suspicion that he was capable of sewing money up in his clothes. He treats me not as an officer, but as a thief, Mitya muttered to himself. They communicated their ideas to one another with amazing frankness. The secretary, for instance, who was also behind the curtain, fussing about and listening, called Nikolai Pefonovitch's attention to the cap, which they were also fingering. You remember Grushenka, the copying clerk, observed the secretary. Last summer he received the wages of the whole office, and pretended to have lost the money when he was drunk. And where was it found? Why, in just some pipings in his cap. The 100-ruble notes were screwed up in little rolls and sewed in the piping. Both the lawyers remembered Grushenka's case perfectly, and so laid aside Mitya's cap, and decided that all his clothes must be more thoroughly examined later. Excuse me, cried Nikolai Pefonovitch, suddenly, noticing that the right cuff of Mitya's shirt was turned in and covered with blood. Excuse me, what's that? Blood? Yes, Mitya jerked out. That is, what blood? And why is the cuff turned in? Mitya told him how he had got the sleeve stained with blood looking after Grigory, and had turned it inside when he was washing his hands at Pechotin's. You must take off your shirt too. That's very important as material evidence. Mitya flushed red and flew into a rage. What? Am I to stay naked? He shouted. Don't disturb yourself. We will arrange something, and meanwhile take off your socks. You are not joking. Is that really necessary? Mitya's eyes flashed. We are in no mood for joking, answered Nikolai Pefonovitch sternly. Well, if I must, muttered Mitya, and sitting down on the bed, he took off his socks. He felt unbearably awkward. All were clothed, while he was naked, and strange to say, when he was undressed he felt somehow guilty in their presence, and was almost ready to believe himself that he was inferior to them, and that now they had a perfect right to despise him. When all are undressed, one is somehow not ashamed, but when one's the only one undressed and everybody is looking, it's degrading. He kept repeating to himself again and again. It's like a dream. I've sometimes dreamed of being in such degrading positions. It was a misery to him to take off his socks. They were very dirty, and so were his underclothes, and now everyone could see it. And what was worse, he disliked his feet. All his life he had thought both his big toes hideous. He particularly loathed the coarse, flat, crooked nail on the right one, and now they would all see it, feeling intolerably ashamed to make him, at once and intentionally, rougher. He pulled off his shirt himself. Would you like to look anywhere else if you're not ashamed to? No, there's no need to, at present. Well, am I to stay naked like this? He added savagely. Yes, that can't be helped for the time. Kindly sit down here for a while. You can wrap yourself in a quilt from the bed, and I'll see to all this. All the things were shown to the witnesses. The report of the search was drawn up, and at last Nikolai Pefonovitch went out, and the clothes were carried out after him. Ippolit Kiryovitch went out too. Mitya was left alone with the peasants, who stood in silence, never taking their eyes off him. Mitya wrapped himself up in the quilt. He felt cold. His bare feet stuck out, and he couldn't pull the quilt over so as to cover them. Nikolai Pefonovitch seemed to be gone a long time, an insufferable time. He thinks of me as a puppy, thought Mitya, gnashing his teeth. That rotten prosecutor has gone too, contemptuous no doubt. It disgusts him to see me naked. Mitya imagined, however, that his clothes would be examined and returned to him. But what was his indignation when Nikolai Pefonovitch came back with quite different clothes, brought in behind him by a peasant. Here are clothes for you, he observed airily, seeming well satisfied with the success of his mission. Mr. Kalganov has kindly provided these for this unusual emergency, as well as a clean shirt. Luckily he had them all in his trunk. You can keep your own socks and underclothes. Mitya flew into a passion. I won't have other people's clothes, he shouted menacingly. Give me my own. It's impossible. Give me my own. Damn Kalganov and his clothes, too. It was a long time before they could persuade him, but they succeeded somehow in quieting him down. They impressed upon him that his clothes, being stained with blood, must be included with the other material evidence, and that they had not even the right to let him have them now, taking into consideration the possible outcome of the case. Mitya at last understood this. He subsided into gloomy silence and hurriedly dressed himself. He merely observed, as he put them on, that the clothes were much better than his old ones, and that he disliked gaining by the change. The coat was, besides, ridiculously tight. Am I to be dressed up like a fool for your amusement? They urged upon him again that he was exaggerating, that Kalganov was only a little taller, so that only the trousers might be a little too long, but the coat turned out to be really tight in the shoulders. Damn it all, I can hardly button it, Mitya grumbled. Be so good as to tell Mr. Kalganov from me that I didn't ask for his clothes, and it's not my doing that they've dressed me up like a clown. He understands that, and is sorry. I mean, not sorry to lend you his clothes, but sorry about all this business, mumbled Nikolai Petronovich. Confound his sorrow. Well, where now? Am I to go on sitting here? He was asked to go back to the other room. Mitya went in, scowling with anger and trying to avoid looking at anyone. Dressed in another man's clothes, he felt himself disgraced, even in the eyes of the peasants, and of Trifon Borisovich, whose face appeared, for some reason, in the doorway and vanished immediately. He's come to look at me dressed up, thought Mitya. He sat down on the same chair as before. He had an absurd nightmarish feeling, as though he were out of his mind. Well, what now? Are you going to flog me? That's all that's left for you, he said, clenching his teeth and addressing the prosecutor. He would not turn to Nikolai Petronovich, as though he disdained to speak to him. He looked too closely at my socks, and turned them inside out on purpose to show everyone how dirty they were, the scoundrel. Well, now we must proceed to the examination of witnesses, observed Nikolai Petronovich, as though in reply to Mitya's question. Yes, said the prosecutor thoughtfully, as though reflecting on something. We've done what you would in your interest, Dmitri Fyodorovich, Nikolai Petronovich went on. But having received from you such an uncompromising refusal to explain to us the source from which you obtained the money found upon you, we are, at the present moment— What is the stone in your ring? Mitya interrupted suddenly, as though awakening from a reverie. He pointed to one of the 3 large rings adorning Nikolai Petronovich's right hand. Ring? Repeated Nikolai Petronovich with surprise. Yes, that one, on your middle finger, with the little veins in it. What stone is that? Mitya persisted, like a peevish child. That's a smoky topaz, said Nikolai Petronovich, smiling. Would you like to look at it? I'll take it off. No, don't take it off, cried Mitya furiously, suddenly waking up and angry with himself. Don't take it off, there's no need. Damn it, gentlemen, you've sullied my heart. Can you suppose that I would conceal it from you if I had really killed my father, that I would shuffle, lie, and hide myself? No, that's not like Dmitri Karamazov. That he couldn't do, and if I were guilty, I swear I shouldn't have waited for your coming, or for the sunrise as I meant at first, but should have killed myself before this, without waiting for the dawn. I know that about myself now. I couldn't have learned so much in 20 years as I found out in this cursed night. And should I have been like this on this night, and at this moment, sitting with you, could I have talked like this? Could I have moved like this? Could I have looked at you and at the world like this? If I had really been the murderer of my father, when the very thought of having accidentally killed Gregory gave me no peace all night, not from fear, not simply from fear of your punishment, the disgrace of it. And you expect me to be open with such scoffers as you, who see nothing and believe in nothing, blind moles and scoffers, and to tell you another nasty thing I've done, another disgrace, even if that would save me from your accusation. No, better Siberia. The man who opened the door to my father and went in at that door, he killed him, he robbed him. Who was he? I'm racking my brains and can't think who. But I can tell you it was not Dmitri Karamazov, and that's all I can tell you. And that's enough. Enough. Leave me alone. Exile me, punish me, but don't bother me anymore. I'll say no more. Call your witnesses. Mitya uttered his sudden monologue as though he were determined to be absolutely silent for the future. The prosecutor watched him the whole time, and only when he had ceased speaking, observed, as though it were the most ordinary thing, with the most frigid and composed air. Oh, about the open door of which you spoke just now, we may as well inform you, by the way, now, of a very interesting piece of evidence of the greatest importance both to you and to us that has been given us by Grigory, the old man you wounded. On his recovery, he clearly and emphatically stated, in reply to our questions, that when, on coming out to the steps and hearing a noise in the garden, he made up his mind to go into it through the little gate which stood open, before he noticed you running, as you have told us already, in the dark from the open window where you saw your father, he, Grigory, glanced to the left and, while noticing the open window, observed at the same time, much nearer to him, the door, standing wide open, that door which you have stated to have been shut the whole time you were in the garden. I will not conceal from you that Grigory himself confidently affirms and bears witness that you must have run from that door, though, of course, he did not see you do so with his own eyes, since he only noticed you first some distance away in the garden, running towards the fence. Mitya had leapt up from his chair halfway through his speech. "Nonsense," he yelled, in a sudden frenzy. "It's a barefaced lie. He couldn't have seen the door open because it was shut. He's lying." I consider it my duty to repeat that he is firm in his statement. He does not waver. He adheres to it. We've cross-examined him several times. Precisely. I have cross-examined him several times. Nikolai Petronovich confirmed warmly. It's false. False. It's either an attempt to slander me or the hallucination of a madman. Mitya still shouted. He's simply raving, from loss of blood, from the wound. He must have fancied it when he came to. His raving. Yes, but he noticed the open door, not when he came to after his injuries, but before that, as soon as he went into the garden from the lodge. But it's false. It's false. It can't be so. He's slandering me from spite. He couldn't have seen it. I didn't come from the door, gasped Mitya. The prosecutor turned to Nikolai Petronovich and said to him impressively, "Confront him with it. Do you recognize this object?" Nikolai Petronovich laid upon the table a large and thick official envelope, on which 3 seals still remained intact. The envelope was empty and slit open at one end. Mitya stared at it with open eyes. It must be that envelope of my father's, the envelope that contained the 3,000 roubles, and if there's inscribed on it, allow me, for my little chicken. Yes, 3,000, he shouted. Do you see? 3,000, do you see? Of course we see, but we didn't find the money in it. It was empty, and lying on the floor by the bed behind the screen. For some seconds Mitya stood as though thunderstruck. "Gentlemen, it's Smerdyakov," he shouted suddenly, at the top of his voice. "It's he who's murdered him. He's robbed him. No one else knew where the old man hid the envelope. It's Smerdyakov. That's clear now." "But you too knew of the envelope and that it was under the pillow." "I never knew it. I never seen it. This is the first time I've looked at it. I've only heard of it from Smerdyakov. He was the only one who knew where the old man kept it hidden. I didn't know." Mitya was completely breathless. "But you told us yourself that the envelope was under your deceased father's pillow. You especially stated that it was under the pillow, so you must have known it." "We've got it written down," confirmed Nikolai Petronovich. "Nonsense! It's absurd! I'd no idea it was under the pillow, and perhaps it wasn't under the pillow at all. It was just a chance guess that it was under the pillow. What does Smerdyakov say? Have you asked him where it was? What does Smerdyakov say? That's the chief point, and I went out my way to tell lies against myself. I told you about thinking that it was under the pillow, and now you know how one says the wrong thing without meaning it. No one knew about Smerdyakov, only Smerdyakov and no one else. He didn't even tell me where it was, but it's his doing. His doing. There's no doubt about it. He murdered him. That's as clear as daylight now." Mitya exclaimed more and more frantically, repeating himself incoherently and growing more and more exasperated and excited. "You must understand that and arrest him at once. He must have killed him while I was running away and while Grigory was unconscious. That's clear now. He gave the signal and father opened to him, for no one but he knew the signal, and without the signal father would never have opened the door." "But you're again forgetting the circumstance," the prosecutor observed, still speaking with the same restraint, though with a note of triumph, "that there was no need to give the signal if the door already stood open when you were there, while you were in the garden." The door, muttered Mitya, and he stared speechless at the prosecutor. He sank back helpless in his chair. All were silent. "Yes, the door. It's a nightmare. God is against me," he exclaimed, staring before him in complete stupefaction. "Come, you see." The prosecutor went on with dignity. "And you can judge for yourself, Dmitri Fyodorovich. On the one hand, we have the evidence of the open door from which you ran out. a fact which overwhelms you and us. On the other side, your incomprehensible, persistent, and, so to speak, obdurate silence with regard to the source from which you obtained the money which was so suddenly seen in your hands, when only 3 hours earlier, on your own showing, you pledged your pistols for the sake of 10 roubles. In view of all these facts, judge for yourself. What are we to believe, and what can we depend upon? And don't accuse us of being frigid, cynical, scoffing people who are incapable of believing in the generous impulses of your heart. Try to enter into our position. Mitya was indescribably agitated. He turned pale. Very well, he exclaimed suddenly. I will tell you my secret. I'll tell you where I got the money. I'll reveal my shame, that I may not have to blame myself or you hereafter. And believe me, Dmitri Fyodorovich, put in Nikolai Pefonovich in a voice of almost pathetic delight, that every sincere and complete confession on your part at this moment may, later on, have an immense influence in your favor, and may, indeed, moreover. But the prosecutor gave him a slight shove under the table, and he checked himself in time. Mitya, it is true, had not heard. Chapter 7. Mitya's great secret received with hisses. Gentlemen, he began, still in the same agitation, I want to make a full confession. That money was my own. The lawyer's faces lengthened. That was not at all what they expected. How do you mean? Faltered Nikolai Pefonovich. When at 5 o'clock on the same day, from your own confession. Damn 5 o'clock on the same day and my own confession. That's nothing to do with it now. That money was my own, that is, stolen by me. Not mine, but stolen by me. And it was 1,500 roubles, and I had it on me all the time. But where did you get it? I took it off my neck, gentlemen, off this very neck. It was here, round my neck, sewn up in a rag, and I'd had it round my neck a long time. It's a month since I put it round my neck, to my shame and disgrace. And from whom did you appropriate it? You mean steal it? Speak out plainly now. Yes, I consider that I practically stole it, but if you prefer, I appropriated it. I consider I stole it, and last night I stole it finally. Last night? But you said that it's a month since you obtained it. Yes, but not from my father. Not from my father. Don't be uneasy. I didn't steal it from my father, but from her. Let me tell you without interrupting. It's hard to do, you know. You see, a month ago, I was sent for by Katerina Ivanovna, formerly my betrothed. Do you know her? Yes, of course. I know you know her. She's a noble creature, noblest of the noble. But she has hated me ever so long, oh, ever so long, and hated me with good reason. Katerina Ivanovna, Nikolai Pefonovich exclaimed with wonder. The prosecutor, too, stared. Oh, don't take her name in vain. I'm a scoundrel to bring her into it. Yes, I've seen that she hated me, a long while, from the very first, even that evening at my lodging. But enough. You're unworthy even to know of that. No need of that at all. I need only tell you that she sent for me a month ago, gave me 3,000 roubles to send off to her sister and another relation in Moscow. And it was just at that fatal moment in my life when when I just come to love her. She's sitting down below now, Grushenka. I carried her off here to Mokrow then, and wasted here in 2 days half that damned 3,000, but the other half I kept on me. Well, I've kept that other half, that 1,500, like a locket round my neck. But yesterday I undid it and spent it. What's left of it, 800 roubles, is in your hands now, Nikolai Pefonovich. That's the change out of the 1,500 I had yesterday. Excuse me, how's that? Why, when you were here a month ago, you spent 3,000, not 1,500. Everybody knows that. Who knows it? Who counted the money? Did I let anyone count it? Why, you told everyone yourself that you spent exactly 3,000. It's true, I did. I told the whole town so, and the whole town said so. And here at Mokrow too. Everyone reckoned it was 3,000. Yet I didn't spend 3,000, but 1,500. And the other 1,500 I sewn into a little bag. That's how it was, gentlemen. That's where I got that money yesterday. This is almost miraculous, murmured Nikolai Pefonovich. Allow me to inquire, observed the prosecutor at last. Have you informed anyone whatever of this circumstance before? I mean that you had 1,500 left about you a month ago. I told no one. That's strange. Do you mean absolutely no one? Absolutely no one. No one and nobody. What was your reason for this reticence? What was your motive for making such a secret of it? To be more precise, you have told us at last your secret, in your words so disgraceful, though in reality that is, of course, comparatively speaking, this action, that is, the appropriation of 3,000 roubles belonging to someone else, and of course, only for a time is, in my view at least, only an act of the greatest recklessness and not so disgraceful, when one takes into consideration your character. Even admitting that it was an action in the highest degree discreditable, still discreditable is not disgraceful. Many people have already guessed during this last month about the 3,000 of Katerina's Ivanovna's that you have spent, and I heard the legend myself, apart from your confession. Mikhail Makarovich, for instance, had heard it too, so that indeed it was scarcely a legend, but the gossip of the whole town. There are indications too, if I am not mistaken, that you confessed this yourself to someone. I mean that the money was Katerina Ivanovna's, and so it's extremely surprising to me that hitherto, that is, up to the present moment, you have made such an extraordinary secret of the 1,500 you say you put by, apparently connecting a feeling of positive horror with that secret. It's not easy to believe that it could cost you such distress to confess such a secret. You cried out just now that Siberia would be better than confessing it. The prosecutor ceased speaking. He was provoked. He did not conceal his vexation, which was almost anger, and gave vent to all his accumulated spleen, disconnectedly and incoherently, without choosing words. It's not the 1,500 that's the disgrace, but that I put it apart from the rest of the 3,000, said Mitya firmly. Why? Smiled the prosecutor irritably. What is there disgraceful, to your thinking, in your having set aside half of the 3,000 you had discreditably, if you prefer disgracefully, appropriated? Your taking the 3,000 is more important than what you did with it. And by the way, why did you do that? Why did you set apart that half? For what purpose? For what object did you do it? Can you explain that to us? Oh, gentlemen, the purpose is the whole point, cried Mitya. I put it aside because I was vile. That is, because I was calculating. And to be calculating in such a case is vile. And that vileness has been going on a whole month. It's incomprehensible. I wonder at you. But I'll make it clearer. Perhaps it really is incomprehensible. You see, attend to what I say. I appropriate 3,000 and trust it to my honor. I spend it on a spree, say I spend it all, and next morning I go to her and say, Katya, I've done wrong. I've squandered your 3,000. Well, is that right? No, it's not right. It's dishonest and cowardly. I'm a beast, with no more self-control than a beast. That's so, isn't it? But still, I'm not a thief. Not a downright thief, you admit. I squandered it, but I didn't steal it. Now a second, rather more favorable alternative. Follow me carefully, or I may get confused again. My head's going round. And so, for the second alternative, I spend here only 1,500 out of the 3,000. That is, only half. Next day I go and take that half to her. Katya, take this 1,500 from me. I'm a low beast, and an untrustworthy scoundrel, for I've wasted half the money, and I shall waste this too, so keep me from temptation. Well, what of that alternative? I should be a beast and a scoundrel, and whatever you like, but not a thief, not altogether a thief, or I should not have brought back what was left, but have kept that too. She would see at once that since I brought back half, I should pay back what I've spent, that I should never give up trying to, that I should work to get it and pay it back. So in that case, I should be a scoundrel, but not a thief. You may say what you like, not a thief. I admit that there is a certain distinction, said the prosecutor with a cold smile, but it's strange that you see such a vital difference. Yes, I see a vital difference. Every man may be a scoundrel, and perhaps every man is a scoundrel, but not everyone can be a thief. It takes an arch-scoundrel to be that. Oh, of course, I don't know how to make these fine distinctions, but a thief is lower than a scoundrel. That's my conviction. Listen, I carry the money about me a whole month. I may make up my mind to give it back tomorrow, and I'm a scoundrel no longer. But I cannot make up my mind. You see, though I'm making up my mind every day, and every day spurring myself on to do it, and yet for a whole month I can't bring myself to it, you see. Is that right to your thinking? Is that right? Certainly, that's not right. That I can quite understand, and that I don't dispute, answered the prosecutor with reserve. And let us give up all discussion of these subtleties and distinctions, and, if you will be so kind, get back to the point. And the point is that you have still not told us. Altogether, we've asked you why, in the first place, you have the money, squandering one half and hiding the other. For what purpose exactly did you hide it? What did you mean to do with that 1,500? I insist upon that question, Dmitri Fyodorovich. Yes, of course, cried Mitya, striking himself on the forehead. Forgive me, I'm worrying you, and I'm not explaining the chief point. Or you'd understand in a minute, for it's just the motive of it that's the disgrace. You see, it was all to do with the old man, my dead father. He was always pestering Agrafena Alexandrovna, and I was jealous. I thought then that she was hesitating between me and him. So I kept thinking every day, suppose she were to make up her mind all of a sudden, suppose she were to leave off tormenting me, and were suddenly to say to me, I love you, not him, take me to the other end of the world, and I'd only 40 kopecks. How could I take her away? What could I do? Why, I'd be lost. You see, I didn't know her then. I didn't understand her. I thought she wanted money, and that she wouldn't forgive my poverty. And so I fiendishly counted out a half of that 3,000, sewed it up, calculating on it, sewed it up before I was drunk, and after I had sewn it up, I went off to get drunk on the rest. Yes, that was base. Do you understand now? Both the lawyers laughed aloud. I should have called it sensible and moral on your part not to have squandered it all, chuckled Nikolai Pefonovitch. For after all, what does it amount to? Why, that I stole it. That's what it amounts to. Oh, God, you horrify me by not understanding. Every day that I had that 1,500 sewn up round my neck, every day and every hour I said to myself, you're a thief, you're a thief. Yes, that's why I've been so savage all this month. That's why I fought in the tavern. That's why I attacked my father. It was because I felt I was a thief. I couldn't make up my mind. I didn't dare even to tell Alyosha, my brother, about that 1,500. I felt I was such a scoundrel and such a pickpocket. But do you know, while I carried it, I said to myself at the same time every hour, no, Dmitri Fyodorovich, you may yet not be a thief. Why? Because I might go next day and pay back that 1,500 to Katya. And only yesterday I made up my mind to tear my amulet off my neck on my way from Fenyas to Pehotin. I hadn't been able till that moment to bring myself to it, and it was only when I tore it off that I became a downright thief and a dishonest man for the rest of my life. Why? Because with that I destroyed, too, my dream of going to Katya and saying, I'm a scoundrel, but not a thief. Do you understand now? Do you understand? What was it made you decide to do it yesterday? Nikolai Pefonovitch interrupted. Why? It's absurd to ask. Because I had condemned myself to die at 5 o'clock this morning, here, at dawn. I thought it made no difference whether I died a thief or a man of honor, but I see it's not so. It turns out that it does make a difference. Believe me, gentlemen, what has tortured me most during this night has not been the thought that I'd killed the old servant, and that I was in danger of Siberia just when my love was being rewarded, and heaven was open to me again. Oh, that did torture me, but not in the same way. Not so much as the damned consciousness that I had torn that damned money off my breast at the last and spent it, and had become a downright thief. Oh, gentlemen, I tell you again, with a bleeding heart, I have learned a great deal this night. I have learned that it's not only impossible to live a scoundrel, but impossible to die a scoundrel. No, gentlemen, one must die honest. Mitya was pale. His face had a haggard and exhausted look, in spite of his being intensely excited. I'm beginning to understand you, Dmitri Fyodorovich, the prosecutor said slowly, in a soft and almost compassionate tone. But all this, if you'll excuse my saying so, is a matter of nerves, in my opinion. Your overwrought nerves, that's what it is. And why, for instance, should you not have saved yourself such misery for almost a month by returning that 1,500 to the lady who had entrusted it to you? And why could you not have explained things to her, and in view of your position, which you describe as being so awful, why could you not have had recourse to the plan which would so naturally have occurred to one's mind? That is, after honorably confessing your errors to her, why could you not have asked her to lend you the sum needed for your expenses, which, with her generous heart, she would certainly not have refused you in your distress, especially if it had been with some guarantee, or even on the security you offered to the merchant Samsonov and to Madame Holikov? I suppose you still regard that security as of value? Mitya suddenly crimsoned. Surely you don't think me such an out-and-out scoundrel as that? You can't be speaking in earnest, he said with indignation, looking the prosecutor straight in the face and seeming unable to believe his ears. I assure you I'm in earnest. Why do you imagine I'm not serious? It was the prosecutor's turn to be surprised. Oh, how base that would have been! Gentlemen, do you know, you are torturing me. Let me tell you everything. So be it. I'll confess all my infernal wickedness, but to put you in shame, and you'll be surprised yourself at the depth of ignominy to which a medley of human passions can sink. You must know that I already had that plan myself, that plan you spoke of just now, prosecutor. Yes, gentlemen, I too have had the thought in my mind all this current month, so that I was on the point of deciding to go to Katya. I was mean enough for that. But to go to her, to tell her of my treachery, and for that very treachery to carry it out, for the expenses of that treachery to beg for money from her, Katya, and go straight from her to run away with the other, the rival, who hated and insulted her. To think of it. You must be mad, prosecutor. Mad I am not, but I did speak in haste, without thinking, of that feminine jealousy. If there could be jealousy in this case, as you assert, yes, perhaps there is something of the kind, said the prosecutor, smiling. But that would have been so infamous. Mitya brought his fist down on the table fiercely. That would have been filthy beyond everything. Yes, do you know that she might have given me that money? Yes, and she would have given it too. She'd have been certain to give it, to be revenged on me. She'd have given it to satisfy her vengeance, to show her contempt for me, for hers is an infernal nature too, and she's a woman of great wrath. I'd have taken the money, too. Oh, I should have taken it. I should have taken it, and then for the rest of my life, oh, God forgive me, gentlemen. I'm making such an outcry because I've had that thought in my mind so lately, only the day before yesterday, that night when I was having all that bother with Liagavia, and afterwards yesterday, all day yesterday, I remember, till that happened. Till what happened? Put in Nikolai Parfenovitch inquisitively, but Mitya did not hear it. I have made you an awful confession, Mitya said gloomily in conclusion. You must appreciate it, and what's more, you must respect it. For if not, if that leaves your souls untouched, then you've simply no respect for me, gentlemen. I tell you that, and I shall die of shame at having confessed it to men like you. Oh, I shall shoot myself. Yes, I see already that you don't believe me. What, you want to write that down too? He cried in dismay. Yes, what you said just now, said Nikolai Parfenovitch, looking at him in surprise. That is, that up to the last hour you were still contemplating going to Katerina Ivanovna to beg that sum from her. I assure you, that's a very important piece of evidence for us, Dmitri Fyodorovitch. I mean for the whole case, and particularly for you, particularly important for you. Have mercy, gentlemen. Mitya flung up his hands. Don't write that anyway. Have some shame. Here I've torn my heart asunder before you, and you seize the opportunity and are fingering the wounds in both halves. Oh, my God. In despair he hid his face in his hands. Don't worry yourself so, Dmitri Fyodorovitch, observed the prosecutor. Everything that is written down will be read over to you afterwards, and what you don't agree to will alter as you like. But now I'll ask you one little question for the second time. Has no one, absolutely no one, heard from you of that money you sewed up? That, I must tell you, is almost impossible to believe. No one. I told you so before, or you've not understood anything. Let me alone. Very well, this matter is bound to be explained, and there's plenty of time for it. But meantime, consider, we have perhaps a dozen witnesses that you yourself spread it abroad, and even shouted almost everywhere about the 3,000 you'd spent here. 3,000, not 1,500. And now, too, when you got hold of the money you had yesterday, you gave many people to understand that you had brought 3,000 with you. You've got not dozens, but hundreds of witnesses. 200 witnesses. 200 have heard it. Thousands have heard it, cried Mitya. Well, you see, all bear witness to it, and the word all means something. It means nothing. I talked rot, and everyone began repeating it. But what need had you to talk rot, as you call it? The devil knows, from bravado perhaps, and having wasted so much money, to try and forget that money I had sewn up perhaps. Yes, that was why. Damn it, how often will you ask me that question? Well, I told a fib, and that was the end of it. Once I've said it, I didn't care to correct it. What does a man tell lies for sometimes? That's very difficult to decide, Dmitri Fyodorovitch. What makes a man tell lies? Observed the prosecutor impressively. Tell me, though, was that amulet, as you call it, on your neck a big thing? No, not big. How big, for instance? If you fold a 100-ruble note in half, that would be the size. You'd better show us the remains of it. You must have them somewhere. Damnation, what nonsense! I don't know where they are. But excuse me, where and when did you take it off your neck? According to your own evidence, you didn't go home. When I was going from Fenyas to Pehotin's, on the way I tore it off my neck and took out the money. In the dark? What should I want a light for? I did it with my fingers in 1 minute. Without scissors, in the street. In the marketplace, I think it was. Why scissors? It was an old rag. It was torn in a minute. Where did you put it afterwards? I dropped it there. Where was it exactly? In a marketplace. In a marketplace. The devil knows whereabouts. What do you want to know for? That's extremely important, Dmitri Fyodorovich. It would be material evidence in your favor. How is it you don't understand that? Who helped you to sew it up a month ago? No one helped me. I did it myself. Can you sew? A soldier has to know how to sew. No knowledge was needed to do that. Where did you get the material, that is, the rag in which you sewed the money? Are you laughing at me? Not at all. And we are in no mood for laughing, Dmitri Fyodorovich. I don't know where I got the rag from. Somewhere, I suppose. I should have thought you couldn't have forgotten it. Upon my word, I don't remember. I might have torn a bit off my linen. That's very interesting. We might find your lodgings tomorrow at the shirt or whatever it is from which you tore the rag. What sort of rag was it? Cloth or linen? Goodness only knows what it was. Wait a bit. I believe I didn't tear it off anything. It was a bit of calico. I believe I sewed it up in a cap of my landlady's. In your landlady's cap? Yes, I took it from her. How did you get it? You see, I remember once taking a cap for a rag, perhaps to wipe my pen on. I took it without asking, because it was a worthless rag. I tore it up, and I took the notes and sewed them up in it. I believe it was in that very rag I sewed them, an old piece of calico, washed 1,000 times. And you remember that for certain now. I don't know whether for certain. I think it was in the cap. But hang it, what does it matter? In that case, your landlady will remember that the thing was lost. No, she won't. She didn't miss it. It was an old rag, I tell you. An old rag not worth a farthing. And where did you get the needle and thread? I'll stop now. I won't say any more. Enough of it, said Mitya, losing his temper at last. It's strange that you should have so completely forgotten where you threw the pieces in the marketplace. Give orders for the marketplace to be swept tomorrow, and perhaps you'll find it, said Mitya, sneering. Enough, gentlemen, enough, he decided in an exhausted voice. I see you don't believe me, not for a moment. It's my fault, not yours. I ought not to have been so ready. Why did I degrade myself by confessing my secret to you? It's a joke to you. I see that from your eyes. You led me onto it, prosecutor. Sing a hymn of triumph if you can. Damn you, you torturers. He bent his head and hid his face in his hands. The lawyers were silent. A minute later, he raised his head and looked at them almost vacantly. His face now expressed complete, hopeless despair, and he sat mute and passive as though hardly conscious of what was happening. In the meantime, they had to finish what they were about. They had immediately to begin examining the witnesses. It was by now 8 o'clock in the morning. The lights had been extinguished long ago. Mikhail Makarovich and Kalganov, who had been continually in and out of the room all the while the interrogation had been going on, had now both gone out again. The lawyers, too, looked very tired. It was a wretched morning. The whole sky was overcast, and the rain streamed down in bucketfuls. Mitya gazed blankly out of the window. May I look out of the window? He asked Nikolai Petronovich suddenly. Oh, as much as you like, the latter replied. Mitya got up and went to the window. The rain lashed against its little greenish panes. He could see the muddy road just below the house, and farther away, in the rain and mist, a row of poor, black, dismal huts, looking even blacker and poorer in the rain. Mitya thought of Phoebus the golden-haired, and how he had meant to shoot himself at his first ray. Perhaps it would be even better on a morning like this, he thought with a smile, and suddenly, flinging his hand downwards, he turned to his torturers. Gentlemen, he cried, I see that I am lost. But she, tell me about her, I beseech you. Surely she need not be ruined with me. She's innocent, you know. She was out of her mind when she cried last night, it's all my fault. She's done nothing. I've been grieving over her all night as I sat with you. Won't you tell me what you are going to do with her now? You can set your mind quite rest on that score, Dmitri Fyodorovich, the prosecutor answered at once, with evident alacrity. We have, so far, no grounds for interfering with the lady in whom you are so interested. I trust that it may be the same in the later development of the case. On the contrary, we'll do everything that lies in our power in that matter. Set your mind completely at rest. Gentlemen, I thank you. I knew that you were honest, straightforward people in spite of everything. You've taken the load off my heart. Well, what are we to do now? I'm ready. Well, we ought to make haste. We must pass to examining the witnesses without delay. That must be done in your presence, and therefore... Shouldn't we have some tea first? interposed Nikolai Petronovich. "I think we've deserved it." They decided that if tea were ready downstairs, they would have a glass and then go on, putting off their proper breakfast until a more favorable opportunity. Tea really was ready below, and was soon brought up. Mitya at first refused the glass that Nikolai Petronovich politely offered him, but afterwards he asked for it himself and drank it greedily. He looked surprisingly exhausted. It might have been supposed from his Herculean strength that one night of carousing, even accompanied by the most violent emotions, could have had little effect on him. But he felt that he could hardly hold his head up, and from time to time all the objects about him seemed heaving and dancing before his eyes. "A little more and I shall begin raving," he said to himself.